My mom said she was going to Europe for just 1 month. She smiled like it was nothing serious. Before leaving, she kissed my forehead, placed $2 in my hand, and said, "You're old enough to manage." I was 11 years old. That was all the money she left me with. No food plan. No list of adults to call. No neighbor asked to check on me. Just an empty fridge, a quiet house, and a door that closed behind her. At first, I thought she would come back soon. I counted days on a small calendar. I tried to be brave. I told myself she trusted me. But by the third day, the food was almost gone. I ate very little and saved my school lunch for dinner. At night, the house felt too big and too quiet. Every sound made my heart race. I slept with the lights on because I was scared and alone. I did not tell anyone at school. I felt ashamed, like it was my fault. Teachers asked why I looked tired, but I said I was fine. I learned how to hide hunger with smiles. I learned how to act normal while feeling forgotten. Each day felt longer than the last. What hurt the most was knowing she chose this. She planned her trip, packed her bags, and still left me with nothing. I was a child, but I understood one thing clearly: I was not her priority. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. My mom said she was going to Europe for just 1 month. She smiled like it was nothing serious. Before leaving, she kissed my forehead, placed $2 in my hand, and said, "You're old enough to manage." I was 11 years old. That was all the money she left me with. No food plan. No list of adults to call. No neighbor asked to check on me. Just an empty fridge, a quiet house, and a door that closed behind her. At first, I thought she would come back soon. I counted days on a small calendar. I tried to be brave. I told myself she trusted me. But by the third day, the food was almost gone. I ate very little and saved my school lunch for dinner. At night, the house felt too big and too quiet. Every sound made my heart race. I slept with the lights on because I was scared and alone. I did not tell anyone at school. I felt ashamed, like it was my fault. Teachers asked why I looked tired, but I said I was fine. I learned how to hide hunger with smiles. I learned how to act normal while feeling forgotten. Each day felt longer than the last. What hurt the most was knowing she chose this. She planned her trip, packed her bags, and still left me with nothing. I was a child, but I understood one thing clearly: I was not her priority. Stick with me while I share my story, and if it touches you, don't forget to support our channel by hitting that subscribe button, dropping a like, and sharing it with the people you care about. Morning felt strange before anything happened. The house buzzed with movement that had nothing to do with me. Drawers opened. Zippers pulled tight. Shoes lined up near the entrance. Their voices sounded light, almost excited, like people heading towards something better. Clothes were folded with care, not rushed, not worried. Travel papers rested on the counter. Bags waited by the wall. Everything looked planned. Everything looked intentional. No one checked the kitchen. No one checked on me. I stood nearby, unnoticed, watching adults prepare for freedom. Lisa crouched for a second, close enough for me to smell her perfume. She pressed folded cash into my palm, thin and soft from use. Her fingers stayed there just long enough to make it feel important. Her words were short and sharp, like advice instead of care. Don't waste it. That was all. No instructions. No concern. Just a warning. Brent adjusted his jacket, already halfway gone. He did not look back. The handle turned. The frame shook slightly. Then silence rushed in, heavy and final. The lock clicked like a decision being sealed. I waited near the window long after the car disappeared. I expected hesitation. I expected regret. I expected someone to remember something important and return. The sun moved across the floor. The light changed. Nothing else did. Evening arrived quietly. Street lights came on one by one. The air inside felt colder. Every sound from outside made me lift my head, hoping. Footsteps passed. Engines slowed. None stopped. Darkness settled fully. The house stayed still. No keys. No voices. No sign of correction. I sat on the floor until my legs hurt, listening to emptiness stretch longer than it should. When night finally swallowed the hours, understanding arrived with it. This was not a delay. This was not a mistake. Leaving had been easy. Staying away was easier. Days began to blend together, measured by what little remained in the kitchen. I counted every bite carefully, thinking ahead instead of eating freely. Portions became smaller with each passing hour. I broke snacks into pieces, spacing them across time, convincing myself this was normal. Drinking filled space where meals should have been. My stomach ached, but I trained myself to ignore it. At school, I planned ahead. I wrapped leftovers in napkins, tucked them deep inside my bag, and waited until evening to eat. I chewed slowly, making each mouthful last. Hunger became a background noise, always present, never spoken. I practiced smiling through it, answering questions with energy I did not feel. No one noticed because I made sure they didn't. I learned control quickly. I learned discipline without guidance. Every decision revolved around survival. When to eat. When to wait. When to sleep. When to stay alert. Childhood disappeared quietly, replaced by caution and calculation. Inside the house, sound vanished. Walls echoed nothing back. The refrigerator hum felt louder than it should. Clocks ticked like reminders that time kept moving without caring. Rooms felt larger, emptier, colder. I stopped turning on lights unless necessary. Darkness felt easier to manage than hope. I stopped expecting voices. I stopped reacting to silence. The absence became familiar, like a presence of its own. I learned that stillness can press against you, heavy and unforgiving. It wrapped around me, reminding me that no one was watching, no one was waiting, no one was coming. Lying awake at night, I listened to my own breathing, counting it just to feel something steady. Fear sat close, but resignation sat closer. I understood something important without words. Needs do not matter when no one is there to hear them. That realization changed me. It taught me restraint, patience, and distance. It showed me how loneliness sharpens awareness. I was young, but I learned a truth many never face. So early, when care disappears, survival becomes a private responsibility, carried silently, one careful choice at a time. There came a moment when holding everything alone felt impossible. My hand shook while dialing a number I rarely used. Mare answered with a casual tone, like nothing in the world could be wrong. I spoke softly, choosing words carefully, hoping she would hear what I could not say directly. I tried to explain that something felt off, that time kept passing without change. Her response landed hard. She laughed once, not kindly. She said my mother would never behave that way. She told me I was being dramatic. She ended the call by suggesting I calm down and stop imagining problems. The line went dead, leaving my chest tight and my trust cracked. After that, I stayed quiet. Reaching out had cost too much. Silence felt safer than disbelief. At school, adults began to watch me more closely. Their eyes lingered. Their questions came gently at first. They asked if everything was okay at home. They asked if I was sleeping enough. They asked if I was eating properly. Concern filled their voices, but fear filled mine. I nodded. I smiled. I answered exactly what they expected. I said I was fine. I said I was just tired. I said nothing was wrong. Each lie felt heavy, but honesty felt unbearable. Telling the truth meant risking more doubt, more judgment, more rejection. I learned how to deflect attention. I learned how to redirect conversations. I learned how to disappear in plain sight. The idea of being questioned further terrified me more than the ache I carried daily. What hurt most was realizing help existed but belief did not. I understood that asking once had been my chance. Being dismissed taught me a painful rule: if the first person turns away, others likely will too. So I chose hunger over humiliation. I chose silence over suspicion. I chose to endure quietly rather than explain myself again. It was easier to suffer unseen than to be told my real it was not real. Late evening brought a sudden click, followed by darkness that did not feel accidental. The lamps died. The television screen vanished. A warning beep echoed once, sharp and final. Panic rose fast. I stood frozen, unsure what mistake I had made this time. After a few seconds, a weak glow returned, but fear stayed behind. While searching for answers, I noticed something tucked behind a stack of papers near the counter. It was a plain envelope, creased from being handled before. My name was not written on it. Curiosity pushed past hesitation. I slid a finger under the flap and pulled the contents free. Printed pages fell into my hands. Numbers. Dates. Locations. Rows of spending that did not belong to someone struggling. I stared, confused at first, then slowly aware. Payments had been going out regularly. Large amounts. Consistent timing. Not mistakes. Not emergencies. I traced the lines carefully. Stays at expensive places. Tasting events. High-end purchases meant for pleasure, not necessity. Every page told the same story. Money existed. Plenty of it. It simply flowed elsewhere. My chest tightened as understanding settled in. Resources were never missing. Support was never impossible. What was missing was concern. What was absent was intention to care. I sat on the floor with those papers spread around me like proof I never asked for. Each entry felt like a choice made against me. Every receipt carried laughter I never heard. Comfort I never touched. Safety I never received. This discovery changed everything. It stripped away excuses. It erased doubt. There was no misunderstanding left to cling to. The situation had been deliberate. Plans had been detailed. Enjoyment had been prioritized. That night, something broke cleanly instead of painfully. The hope that this was temporary disappeared. In its place came clarity. I understood I had not been overlooked. I had been excluded. The truth was simple and devastating. Absence had been funded, distance had been purchased. While I measured days by endurance, others measured them by pleasure. From that moment on, I stopped wondering why I was alone. I finally knew. Time kept moving forward without asking how I felt about it. The early days were full of tears that came without warning. My throat burned, my eyes ached, and my chest felt tight every night. Then, slowly, the tears stopped. Not because things improved, but because crying began to feel useless. By the third week, my face stayed dry even when my heart felt heavy. Something inside me shifted. Fear faded first. Sadness followed. In their place grew a strange calm that did not belong to a child. I moved through each day with purpose, not hope. I stopped waiting for rescue. I stopped imagining apologies. Expectation dissolved into acceptance. That change scared me more than hunger ever had. I noticed how steady my hands became. How quiet my thoughts grew. Emotions dulled into something firm and controlled. It felt like building walls where feelings used to live. Those walls kept pain out, but they also kept softness away. I began relying only on myself. Decisions came faster. Doubt mattered less. I learned to trust my own judgment because it was the only thing that stayed. Dependence felt dangerous now, like a trap I had barely survived. Needing someone meant giving them power. I decided that would never happen again. At night, instead of wishing for comfort, I planned. I thought about distance. About separation. About a future shaped by my own choices alone. A quiet vow formed without ceremony or anger. I would not lean on people who could walk away so easily. There was no dramatic moment, no spoken promise. Just a deep understanding that settled into my bones. I would build a life where no one held control over my safety. I would become untouchable through preparation and patience. And somewhere beneath that resolve lived something colder. Not rage, but memory. I knew how abandonment felt. I knew its weight, its silence, its damage. One day, without cruelty or noise, that feeling would return to where it came from. Not through shouting. Not through pleading. Through absence. Through distance. Through the same emptiness that shaped me. The front door finally opened with noise instead of silence. Voices filled the space, bright and careless. Their skin looked darker, healthier, like time had been kind to them. Luggage rolled across the floor. Laughter bounced off the walls. They spoke over each other, sharing memories I was never part of. I stood nearby, smaller than before, watching strangers who knew my name. Brent glanced at me with a brief frown, eyes scanning my frame. He asked what had happened, why I looked so thin, like it was a passing curiosity instead of concern. His tone held surprise, not guilt. Lisa waved it off with humor. She laughed and made a joke, saying I must have forgotten meals. Her words floated easily, like nothing serious had occurred. She did not wait for an answer. She did not look closely. Jokes replaced responsibility. I did not correct her. I did not explain. I did not ask why. My face formed a small smile, practiced and controlled. It felt strange how natural it came. That expression hid more than pain. It hid distance. They unpacked souvenirs and stories, placing objects on tables, describing places with excitement. I listened quietly, nodding when expected. Each sentence they spoke confirmed something I already understood. Their happiness had not been interrupted by my absence. Inside, I stayed calm. There was no rush to speak. No need to confront. Words felt unnecessary now. I had crossed into a different place, one where reactions were measured and emotions were managed carefully. While they talked, my thoughts stayed elsewhere. I paid attention, not to what they said, but to how they said it. Casual. Light. Unbothered. That told me everything I needed. The smile on my face was not forgiveness. It was preparation. I had learned patience. I had learned timing. What they saw was a quiet child standing in front of them. What they missed was resolve forming beneath that calm surface. They believed everything had returned to normal. They believed time had erased consequences. They believed I was the same. They were wrong. I listened. I observed. I stored every detail away. And while they celebrated being home, I focused on something else entirely. The future. After they returned, I said nothing. No questions. No complaints. My voice stayed in my chest, quiet and controlled. I learned that silence could protect me more than words ever could. Confrontation seemed pointless, it would not change their habits or priorities. I found ways to be self-sufficient. Odd jobs, errands, anything I could do without needing approval. Every coin I earned went into a hidden place, stacked carefully, unseen. I counted, tracked, and planned, knowing every small effort built toward something bigger. Dependence was dangerous. I refused it. I watched them closely, noticing patterns I had ignored before. Lisa laughed at struggles I endured, pretending they were exaggerations. Brent made light of issues I quietly handled. Their amusement cut deeper than hunger ever had. They did not see me as a person, they saw me as entertainment, a minor inconvenience. Year after year, their carelessness grew. They assumed I would always be fine, that I would remain pliable, that nothing I did mattered. They spoke freely in front of me, unaware that I was taking notes, remembering details, recording slights. Every careless word and action became fuel for what I was planning silently. Time worked in my favor. Their overconfidence became obvious. Their negligence became predictable. I moved through my days with patience, letting them think nothing was wrong. I stayed calm, obedient, and invisible while quietly building stability. I did not rush. I did not push. I let the world turn around me while I strengthened my own position. Their dismissal of me became my advantage. The longer I waited, the more they underestimated me, and the stronger I became. One day, their carelessness would meet consequences. Until then, I watched, I learned, and I prepared. By the time I turned 18, I had built a quiet life of careful routines and hidden savings. One day, a counselor at school invited me to talk, casually asking about my home and past. I had never spoken openly before, but something about that office felt safe, like words could exist without judgment. I began to speak slowly, choosing each detail with care. I told them about days without meals, nights alone in silence, and the constant pressure to manage everything myself. I described how my parents left me with nothing while enjoying luxuries abroad. I showed records I had kept hidden, receipts, statements, and notes that proved what had happened. It felt strange to put the truth into words. I had carried it inside me for years, a weight I thought I would always bear alone. As I spoke, the counselor listened closely, asking questions that dug deeper than anyone ever had. I realized they actually believed me. They actually understood. Then came a moment I never expected. The counselor leaned back and spoke slowly, carefully. They told me that what my parents had done was not just cruel, it was against the law. Leaving a child without support while deliberately spending money elsewhere, they said, could be considered neglect and exploitation. I stared at them, shocked. For years I had thought this was just my misfortune, a cruel twist of circumstance. I had believed it was something I had to endure silently. Now, for the first time, I saw it from a new perspective. What I had suffered was recognized officially. It was actionable. A door had opened. The situation that had defined my childhood could now be challenged. The truth I had carried alone had suddenly become a tool, a key to change the story that had been written for me. I approached the next steps calmly. There was no shouting, no anger that could be used against me. I organized every piece of evidence I had collected over the years, bank statements, receipts, notes on their absences, and my own records of survival. Every detail mattered. I filled out forms carefully, following instructions exactly. Each signature, each date, each document became part of a clear story that could not be ignored. I made sure nothing was left to interpretation. There was no need to raise my voice, the truth was enough. When I submitted the paperwork, I felt a quiet power. I had spent years observing, saving, and documenting, and now those efforts were finally being recognized. I did not plead for sympathy or mercy. I did not beg for justice to be handed down. I let the facts speak for themselves. The authorities examined the evidence thoroughly. They asked questions, checked details, and confirmed every record I had provided. My careful preparation made it impossible to dismiss my claims. Every lie my parents had lived behind was exposed through clear, undeniable proof. It was strange to watch the process unfold without rage. There was no spectacle, no confrontation, just a system working as it was meant to. My parents had assumed silence meant compliance, that their choices would be invisible. They had no idea the quiet child they ignored could wield such precision. I stayed patient, letting each step take its course. I watched as the truth I had carried alone became undeniable. I realized that revenge did not need noise or anger. Sometimes, the most effective justice comes through calm, calculated persistence. And for the first time, I felt that balance shift. The power had quietly moved from them to me, without a single word raised in anger. The day the letter arrived, tension filled the house in a way I had never seen before. Lisa's hands trembled as she held the envelope. Her face turned pale, and tears formed quickly, uncontrolled and desperate. It was a stark contrast to the calm indifference she had shown for years. Brent's voice cut through the room sharply. He accused me of being ungrateful, questioning my intentions, trying to shame me into backing down. He paced and shouted, but his anger could not hide the fear in his eyes. For the first time, I saw uncertainty where there had always been confidence. They demanded answers, confused by the consequences of their own choices. "Why are you doing this to us?" they asked, as if the pain they caused could erase itself through my obedience. Their questions hung in the air, heavy with disbelief. I did not flinch. I did not raise my voice. I looked at them directly and spoke clearly, without hesitation. "You did this to me first." The words landed carefully, each one measured. They were not an accusation born of impulse but a simple fact they could not ignore. The room went quiet. Their previous authority evaporated. Every excuse, every justification they had lived by crumbled under that truth. For once, they could not laugh, dismiss, or control the narrative. I felt a strange satisfaction, not from cruelty, but from balance finally being restored. Years of manipulation, neglect, and abandonment were acknowledged, not by argument, but by undeniable evidence and the quiet force of honesty. They finally understood what it meant to be powerless in the face of someone they had tried to erase. The fear, the panic, the realization, it was all theirs now, just as the helplessness had been mine for so long. What followed was not loud or dramatic. The outcome reached further than finances. What truly disappeared was proximity. Contact ended. Distance became permanent. I stepped away without hesitation, choosing peace over obligation. Separation felt lighter than connection ever had. I focused on creating stability that depended on no one else. Education, work, and purpose shaped my days. I surrounded myself with structure, kindness, and intention. Slowly, a future took form, one built on care, not neglect. I learned how to provide safety because I once lacked it. My experiences shaped my direction. I committed myself to protecting those who could not protect themselves. I chose paths that ensured children would not face emptiness disguised as independence. Awareness replaced ignorance. Compassion replaced dismissal. I became the presence I once searched for and never found. Healing did not arrive suddenly. It came through consistency. Through routines that honored my worth. Through boundaries that defended my peace. Through understanding that closure does not require forgiveness. It requires freedom. Occasionally, a small reminder appears. Loose change near a sidewalk. Bills abandoned in a parking lot. Those moments pause me briefly. I do not feel bitterness. I feel recognition. That small amount once symbolized abandonment. Now it represents endurance. What once marked the beginning of survival became the foundation of strength. From scarcity grew discipline. From isolation grew clarity. From silence grew resolve. I no longer measure life by what was taken. I measure it by what was built afterward. Independence no longer means neglect. It means choice. It means control over my own narrative. My past no longer defines me, but it explains me. And in that understanding, I found peace. The journey began with almost nothing. Yet it led to everything I needed. Do you think I was right to walk away, or should I have tried giving them another chance? I want to hear your thoughts in the comments. And if you love stories like mine, subscribe and hit the bell.